Lads here, and we are reviewing the Flyfish RC Volador 3.5 inch on the channel today. Now we're starting off with some initial test flight, tuning flight footage. There's nothing spectacular, it's just a case of feeling where the drone is, feeling where the tune is, feeling where the power band is, having a look at the 03, making sure that we can get the 03 tuned in right, which still isn't actually quite right on this quad. I have to admit there's work to be done upon the 03 and her settings. I mean, it's quite sexist, maybe the 03 is a man, who knows. The Flyfish RC Volador that I have built has a spec list as follows. So we're using the Neutron RC 8032 all-in-one flight controller board. We're using the Rush RC M10 GPS, and we are using the Flyfish RC flash motors 1804 3500 kV motors with the DJI 03 air unit. Now if you was to build this yourself, the frame would cost you I think about £40, the motors would cost you about £45, £200 for a 03, and the flight controller is about £40 and £10 for the GPS. So you're probably looking at under 300 English pound, $300, 300 euros, whatever your currency may be. And for that, you are getting a drone that is potentially compliant with remote ID if you are using a 660 LIHV and really short wires, because you can just, and I do mean just, get it under that 249 gram mark. Now you may have to ditch the prints, you may have to ditch shorter wires, you may have to have a lighter battery strap. I am talking, it will take you a little bit of work. You can't just slap this together and not think about it. And that brings me to my other point about this. So whilst it's really cheap and incredibly capable for what it is, there is no bind and fly option. So there is no option for a newbie to go on to an online store and say, yes, I want to buy the Flyfish RC 3.5 Volador with the DJI 03 and the motors and everything installed and tuned and set up and ready to go. That option just does not exist. And while that's fine for a seasoned pilot such as my good self, for the newbies who I do try to look out for as much as possible on this channel, that's a bit of a barrier to entry for them. Because you're going to have to solder your motors on, you're going to have to make sure you get the right receiver, solder that on. The DJI 03 air unit is on a plug, so potentially you can just plug that in depending on what flight controller you get. If you get the same one as this, I'm happy to share the tune, and I'm also happy to explain that you just have to plug the 03 air unit in and away you go. Another negative point about this, well I see it as a negative point, but I appreciate that not everybody does, is the props are in view. So you're looking at this and you're flying around and you can see your props in view, which also means that for any footage that you post, your props are also in view. Now I'm actually watching footage as I'm doing this review, and I've noticed there's quite a few shakes and bumps and oscillations in the footage. Now I didn't actually notice that when I was flying. Now I have the drone in my hand, and I'm looking at the props, and I do wonder if there's a problem with these props actually. So these are the HQ 3.5 inch props. I fly nothing but HQ props. They are nicked actually in a couple of places, so I do wonder if that's what the problem is, just looking at them. Just looking at how bad some of this footage is actually. It may well be down to the settings within BlueJay. That's definitely something that I'm going to have a look at, and hopefully put some new footage on the screen now, because that's pretty shocking if I've got to be honest. It's not a ringing indictment of this build whatsoever.
Okay, welcome back to the field everybody. We are going to take off with the Flyfish Volador 3.5, and you'll hear it take off on my microphone now. And by the time I'm at the fence I can no longer see it. Now I have just made a change to the PWM frequency within the ESC configurator, because it's not actually BlueJay that this flies, because it's flying the AT32. I noticed some of the footage had come out really sort of lumpy. Now looking at this now, if I go fairly slow and low and careful, let's have a look now. It does seem to have resolved it. So that's good. So we are going to try. So I decided to do a durability test, and by a durability test I decided to do return to home. Unfortunately, when I did the return to home, it decided to drop out of the sky. So I'm going to pretend it was a durability test. It was actually a return to home test, but failed. Now I've got 16 satellites. I had 10 satellites when I took off. So I'm not quite sure why. I have moved my OSD around just in case I didn't quite have enough before. Now there is a lady in the middle of the field, so obviously we're just chilling around. And this is a good test actually for people that just want to chill around. We've only dropped to like 3.9 volts. We're using an 850, so we are slightly over, but because of the A2CFC rules, I can pretty much do everything I can with a sub 250 apart from intentionally overfly somebody. So I can overfly, I just can't do it deliberately. So there is a lady at the tree there, look. So if I were to cut directly across this tree now and I'm intentionally overfly her, that would be against the rules. So I'm not going to do that. I am just going to poodle around this field. 21 satellites. Although it only counts from when you took off, remember. So we'll just sort of see. This drone is really super easy to fly. So for any, I've actually done, and I'm going to include this in the video, but I have actually done my final thoughts on this. So my final thoughts on this are, buy the Newbee Drone Stingerbee if you're a newbie, purely because you can't get this in a buy then fly ready to fly combo. However, if you are a newbie and you say pick up one from something like Facebook Marketplace or anything along those lines, this is so easy to fly as a new pilot. It literally just is super easy. It's just like, it has the authority of a 5-inch whilst having the weight of a 3-inch. It literally, with a smaller battery, is under 250 grams. And it just flies so relaxed. I actually came here to do a pretty hard test today, but you know, you've got to reassess sometimes, haven't you? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop fairly close to the ground before I do this test, and then we'll do the return to home test. So we have to be 100 meters away. We're 107 meters away now.
GPS.
So that's triggered the return to home and it's working fine. So it is possible, when I tried it before, we didn't have enough satellites, or it is possible I wasn't 100 meters away, to be fair. So with the very last bit of this battery now, let's just see how it freestyles now. I've updated the tune and the setting. Anybody who does decide to buy one of these and build to the same spec is more than welcome to this tune. Just leave a comment below if you need it, because it's taken me about 6 flights to get it right. As you can see now, right it indeed is. And we're on 3.6 volts after over 4 minutes. So we are just pushing that a little bit now. This drone is absolutely phenomenal. Okay, I'm on 3.8. I'm not actually getting warnings. 3.6 it's recovered to. Yeah, perfect. I am over the moon with it. And it will be in my bag for every flight from now on.
So, as always, it comes to the final question of should you buy it? And the answer almost always is maybe. See, the options are, as I say, limited to a frame only kit, which means you're going to have to build and spec the whole thing. So you may accidentally get the wrong size motors for your battery, the wrong size KV, the wrong size motors to actually fit the frame. If you're an experienced builder, then you're not going to have a problem. So whether you should buy it or not comes down to ultimately you and where you are on your FPV journey and what you want out of it. Ultimately, this is always going to be judged against the Newbee Drone Stingerbee. This has more authority in the air. This is more fun to fly in the air. This is going to sit on my shelf or in my bag and be one of the quads that I always take out. However, I think, in all honesty, between this and the Newbee Drone Stingerbee, I prefer the Stingerbee, and that's for two reasons. So number one, there's no props in view, which is a biggie for me because a lot of the stuff I do is filming. And then obviously the other aspect of why I would recommend that over this is down to the fact that you can purchase a bind and fly, and there's no building required. And it's also easier to have that sub 250 as well. So for you American viewers with your remote ID, that's much easier. You can get this under 250 grams, but it does take a little bit of work and a little bit of knowledge and research on specifications of batteries and wires and all sorts of different things, screws and it can be done. Mine with a 660 LIHV is literally on the nose at 249 grams. Once I add the 850 on there, it takes it up to about 290 grams approximately. I could ditch the prints, I could shorten some wires, and I don't think I'd get it sub 250 with an 850 battery, however. Whereas a Stingerbee, I can use a slightly larger battery and still be sub 250, and there's no props in shop. And it's easier for me to recommend. If a newbie comes along to me and says, I want a 3-inch drone or a 3.5-inch drone to start with, which one do you recommend? I'm always going to recommend the Newbee Drone to an inexperienced person. That said, if you are an experienced pilot with experienced building skills and you are looking for something different that will comply with remote ID and or be sub 250 for flying in more adventurous places, then I would 100% recommend the Flyfish Volador 3.5 because the authority that it has in the air and how it flies is so similar to a 5-inch. It is phenomenal, and yet it's really, really quiet. Will you be picking one up? Let me know in the comments below. Listen, seriously, the support that you guys have given me over the past few weeks with my illnesses and with the channel and with the subscribers and with the views and with the comments, you've all been absolutely incredible. I cannot thank you all enough. Videos are going to slow down, they're going to take me longer because of my illnesses, etc. But I'm still going to get them out as and when I can, and I'm still going to fly as and when I can because it's the thing that helps me take my mind off things. Anyway, enough about me. You've all been amazing. I've been Quads. Until next time, peace.